Shocking truth. Our Appalachian town's dark secret: why we never leave home after midnight. The moon hung low over Mill Hollow, casting an eerie glow as the clock struck 12. Whispers of darkness curled through the streets, and an unsettling chill gripped the air. The townsfolk had learned the hard way that once the clock struck midnight, strange things stirred in the shadows. No one dared venture out. But why? Their eyes darted to the forest's edge, where the pines huddled together like a secretive cabal. Legends floated through the sleepy town, myths woven into the very fabric of their lives. They spoke of the creeping fog that roamed thicker than the silence, swallowing anyone foolish enough to tread outside. Folks said it was alive, hungry, and looking for something or someone. Just last week, Old Man Jacobs, a sturdy figure with battle scars of his own, had gone out to retrieve his cat. He never returned. A week later, his ragged clothes were found discarded at the edge of the woods, the ground disturbed where something had clawed and scratched. The townspeople looked on, fearing the worst, muttering why it was never safe after dark. A peculiar warmth enveloped Sarah as she stood at her window, feeling the urge to know more. Her friends insisted it was just old wives' tales, but deep down, she felt a magnetic pull toward the truth that flickered in her gut like a dying flame. But then, the lights flickered, the familiar hum of the town fell silent, and an oppressive void echoed through the night. There it was again, an unsettling sound, a hushed whisper that shivered down her spine. Could it be the fog creeping in? The heavy quiet deepened, punctuated only by the sound of her pounding heart. She moved away from the window, uncertain what awaited her outside. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As she braced herself, the shadows outside shifted. A sudden rustle sent her heart racing. She could almost see it, the swirling fog coiling like a serpent, inching toward her. The stories of what lay beyond were real, alive in the night's tendrils. And just then, she heard the scream, a blood-curdling cry that broke the stillness, reverberating through every bone in her body. What was out there? What had taken Jacob? All of her instincts screamed for her to bolt, but a voice inside whispered to stay for the truth that lay beyond the door. She was about to find out if curiosity would save her or seal her fate. She took a step toward the door, a solemn weight gathering in her chest. What awaited her in the darkness? Was the fog really as alive as the tales suggested? And most hauntingly, would she be the next name whispered in Mill Hollow's dread-filled history? Sarah's heart pounded as she reached for the doorknob, the cold metal sending a jolt through her body. Just outside, the air felt thick and heavy, filled with unspoken stories and unnameable fears. Taking a deep breath, she turned the knob and stepped into the night. The moonlight barely pierced the fog that clung to the ground, wrapping around her ankles like fingers. She shivered, glancing back at her home, feeling a tug of reluctance. The scream still echoed in her ears, a haunting reminder that something terrible had happened, and that something worse could still be lurking in the shadows. She looked toward the forest, where the unseen darkness loomed ominously. The tales of the creeping fog weighed heavily on her mind. It was said to come alive at night, to seek out the lost and the curious. A chill coursed down her spine. Could it be watching her now? Cautiously, she moved forward, her breath shallow. Each step felt heavier, as if she were wading through the very fog that closed in around her. The whispers that had nestled in her ear earlier now grew louder, more insistent. They told stories of the vanished, and of those who had tried to escape only to disappear into the depths of the forest. Suddenly, something shifted in the fog ahead of her, a shape barely visible. It flickered like a silhouette dancing in and out of existence. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat, her instinct to run battling with her desperate need for answers. Just then, the ground beneath her shifted, a low growl rolled through the air, vibrating her bones. "Please, is someone there?" she called out, her voice trembling as it fought to break the silence. There was no answer, just the heavy stillness pressing down on her like a shroud. With trembling fingers, she pulled out her phone, its light flickering to life like a fragile hope. As she shone the beam into the fog, her heart sank. The glow revealed parts of the forest that twisted and clenched with movement. Shadows slithered like snakes, disappearing as quickly as they appeared. The reality of the stories flooded back to her. The nightmares, the missing townsfolk, the hunger lurking in the darkness. And then she saw him. A figure emerged from the gloom. It was man-shaped but distorted, as if made of the darkness itself. The fog coiled around the entity like tendrils winding around a prey. His mouth moved, forming silent words, but no sound emitted. The fear thickened in her throat, but she couldn't look away. "Jacob?" she whispered, dread bubbling in her stomach. Was this a ghostly apparition or something more sinister? A deep part of her cried for him to answer. What had befallen him in this cursed place? The figure took a step forward, and the atmosphere shifted. The fog roared as if awakening, drawing closer, wrapping around her like an unseen predator. Sarah felt a pull, a dark invitation whispering for her to join the unseen. Her mind wrestled with the thought of turning back, of retreating to safety. But something inside her yearned to understand. Was she ready to confront the truth, no matter how horrific it might be? A flicker of movement made her heart leap. The fog rippled, and she felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. "Sarah!" A voice called, deep, familiar, laced with desperation. Was it Jacob? Her heart raced as she strained to hear the rest. But the fog enveloped her, swallowing her voice, the chilling waves drowning her in a wave of darkness she couldn't escape. What froze her in place were the words tumbling from the figure's lips. "You shouldn't have come out here." The walls of the night closed in, and in that instant, she understood. Some secrets were never meant to be discovered. What would she risk to save him? And if she pursued the truth, how close would she come to the horror that haunted Mill Hollow? The fog tightened its grip, each misty tendril curling up her legs, drawing her deeper into its depths. Sarah's mind raced as fear twisted in her gut. The figure stepped closer, and she noticed the way it flickered, one moment solid, the next dissolving into mist. It was Jacob, wasn't he it? But changed, corrupted, as if the shadows had stolen pieces of him. "Jacob?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with uncertainty. "Get back," he rasped, his eyes filled with an urgency she had never seen in him before. "You shouldn't be here." His warning hung heavy in the air, pressing down like the fog itself. She felt her pulse thunder in her ears. "I came to find you. Where have you been?" There was desperation in her voice, a frantic need to bridge the distance between them. But Jacob shook his head, the ghostly light illuminating the hollowness of his cheeks. "It's not safe, Sarah. This place, it changes you. It'll try to consume you like it did to me. You can't let it pull you in." The growl reverberated again, this time louder, a feral sound that coursed through the trees. Shadows danced more vividly now, each one threatening to break free from the mist. Absurdly, Sarah thought of all the little stories the townsfolk shared about the forest, how folklore had rooted them in fear. But here she stood, facing it head-on. Her heart battled her instincts. She was terrified yet drawn to him. "I want to leave you," she breathed, stepping forward as if she could reach through the fog and touch him. The figure cringed, the disorder in his silhouette deepening, warping with each flicker. "You don't understand," he shouted, his voice rising like an echo. "You think love is enough? You'll lose everything, everyone you know. Stop right now." But before she could answer, the ground trembled. The fog surged forward, a wave crashing against her legs. She staggered back, heart racing. Panic seized her mind, and all the stories spun in her head. Tales of those who had ventured into the forest, who had never returned. "Sarah," Jacob cried, his form wavering as he fought against the fog's embrace. Run! That word lit a fire in her chest. She turned and bolted, each stride pulling her further away from him. The darkness clawed at her heels, eager to reclaim its grasp. She could hear the growling, the whispers surrounding her, a cacophony of voices urging her to stop. But her instincts kicked in. She ran blindly, branches whipping past her like accusing fingers, tearing against her skin. The air was thick with a suffocating dread. In her mind, she replayed Jacob's voice, frantic, broken. As she fled, a surge of fear struck through her. What if she would be lost forever like the others? In the chaotic jumble of limbs and whispers, she barely noticed the clearing ahead until she burst through and collided with the ground. Gasping for breath, she turned back toward the forest, half expecting to see Jacob charging after her, chasing through the fog. But all she found were shadows, flickering, flitting closer. Rising slowly, she took 2 tentative steps. The oppressive weight of the forest hovered on the edge of the clearing. She could almost feel its pulse quickening, eager for her return. And then she heard it, the desperate voice again. Sarah. Twisted the air. It was coming from behind her, from the heart of the forest, haunting her like a melody she couldn't shake. Her heart beat in her throat. Was it Jacob still calling? Or something else entirely? With every instinct screaming at her to flee, she hesitated, caught in the tug-of-war between safety and the truth she had sought since the beginning. As she stood there, the fog began to shimmer, a vortex swirling with potential terror and revelation. Secrets clung to the air, and Sarah had only to choose to unravel them. Are you willing to lose yourself to save him? The voices in the forest whispered a taunting question designed to strip her of her resolve. And then, as she turned to flee, a figure appeared in the shadows, one that bore Jacob's familiar outline yet was entirely wrong. Help me, Sarah, it pleaded. What was real and what was the fog? In that moment, the choice felt as crushing as the mist rising to consume her. She stood on the brink, terror echoing in her veins, a decision hanging heavy in the air. Would she trust her heart? Or was this the thin thread of madness unraveling before her? A painful gasp escaped her lips as the fog thickened like a living being, and she heard the shadows whisper again, some doors are meant to stay closed. What would she do when faced with the darkness that offered its own sinister promise? The shadows pressed in around her, a tight knot of dread wrapping around Sarah's mind. The figure Jacob stood there, his features twisting in the fog, hauntingly familiar yet sickeningly wrong. It felt as if the forest pulsed with a life of its own, breathing heavily around her, drawing her closer with its invisible tendrils. Sarah, please, I can't hold it back much longer. The desperation in his voice cut through her, raw and real, but she felt a creeping doubt skitter through her thoughts. Was this truly Jacob, her Jacob, or a puppet of the forest's darker whims? Stop, she shouted, though a tremble in her voice betrayed her. What have you done? Nothing, he replied, a snap of urgency lacing his breath. I'm trying to warn you. Don't. Suddenly, the ground heaved beneath her, as if the earth itself had devoured someone whole. Sarah stumbled, her legs quaking. The fog thickened, curling around her like ice, shackling her in place. An unending chill seeped into her bones. With a gasp, the vision beside her flickered again, distorting like a bad signal on a TV. One moment Jacob's sorrowful eyes met hers. The next, they vanished into the mists, replaced by a sinister grin, a face utterly alien that echoed the call of the forest. She shoved her hands forward to shield herself, unwilling to succumb to its embrace. Run, Sarah, echoed Jacob's voice, now far away. You have to go. You'll lose yourself. Lose everything. But could she abandon him? A rush of warmth twisted in her gut, the memories of laughter, the promise of forever. I can't leave you. I want tea. The terror of choice chained her deeper into the heart of the gathering blackness. Then take my hand. The Jacobesque figure called again, though its tone was decidedly off, a mocking lilt she couldn't ignore. We could be free, we could be one. Jagged edges of fear clawed at her psyche, drawing her closer, whispering promises of fantastic escape and belonging. In her heart, a storm raged between loyalty and self-preservation. The shadows swirled around her feet, hungry and insistent, waiting for her decision. With a gasp, the realization struck hard. The fog didn't just distort reality. It twisted love into an insatiable hunger. It fed on doubts and fears, and she could almost taste its malevolent pull. She had to break free. But what about Jacob? Stop playing games. She screamed into the abyss, fury blazing. You think I'll just give up on him? I know what you are. The moment hung in the air, thickening with tension. For a heartbeat, the darkness stilled, as if contemplating her words. This was new. Suddenly, a cacophony erupted. The forest howled, branches snapped, and roots twisted in rebellion against her resolve. Sarah backed away, heart racing. In the chaos, she glimpsed shadows twisting into familiar shapes. Jacob? She called out, panic lacing her voice as dread filled her chest. Was that him, or the echoes of the forest crying out to her? Then, an eruption of light pierced through the fog. A shimmering being pushed through the shadows, ethereal and almost angelic, an apparition made of pure light. It stood before her, blocking the darkness, yet it emanated a warmth that filled her with fierce hope. Sarah, you must gather your strength. The choice is yours to make. What could this light mean? But Jacob, she cried out, torn between this hopeful vision and the tempting darkness beyond. Within her heart, a roar came alive as shadows clawed at her vision, both Jacob and the figure of light reaching out. Her hands trembled. Who would she choose? Just as panic surged to its peak, the light flickered and faded before she could react. The darkness swirled violently around her, obscuring both the figures. A chilling laugh erupted from the depths, mocking her very existence. Some doors are meant to stay closed, the forest hissed, enveloping her in despair. You're running out of time. All at once, the ground shifted once more. Two paths formed, one leading back to Jacob's tortured call, the other to the shimmering promise of salvation. Would she risk it all for love? Sarah braced herself, fighting against the binds of mist and shadow. Which path would she take, and what awaited her on the other side? Then, echoing through the swirling fog, she heard the faintest glimmer of truth rise above the chaos. Don't you see? Your love may be the key to breaking the curse. With breath suspended in her chest, she faced the mist head-on. What sacrifice awaited her in her choice, and would she dare face the darkness to hold onto her light? The air thickened around Sarah, making it hard to breathe. She felt weightless and trapped all at once, as if the fog itself sought to devour her resolve. But within her, a flicker of determination ignited. She wasn't ready to let go, not of Jacob, and certainly not of the possibility that could lie ahead. Eyes darting between the two paths, she felt the pull of both. The path that could lead to Jacob's tortured cries whispered promises of love, of memories they shared, while the other beckoned with a warm glow, a tantalizing hint at freedom. Could her love truly break the curse? The thought sent a jolt through her. Trust yourself, Sarah, a voice whispered from the light. It radiated an unwavering certainty, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. The echo of her heart echoed back, battling the growing dread. What if she tried to reach Jacob and it was all a trap? The forest thrummed ominously, roots writhing like snakes beneath her feet, weaving its dark magic. But she couldn't walk away without knowing. No, she yelled defiantly, clenching her fists at her sides. I won't let you take him from me. Time seemed to distort. The world slowed, shadows swirled, and the skeletal trees around her groaned. In that moment, she could feel the pulsing life of the forest pressing in, like a predator ready to strike. Stepping forward, she took hold of the radiant light, grounding herself against the tide of anguish. Jacob, she screamed again, her voice piercing the veil of uncertainty. His faint outline flickered back into view through the mists. The distress etched on his face brought tears to her eyes. The other figure in the fog, twisted with malice, howled at her defiance. You don't belong here. Embrace your fate. Inside her, Fear warred with hope. She could lose everything or everything could be restored. It was a crossroads, the destiny forged by her choice. "Sarah, please." Jacob's voice trembled, merging with the darkness. "You have to trust me." "Trust you?" The accusation hung heavy in the air. "Do I trust the forest and what it's turned you into, or trust in what we once had?" Branches crackled ominously, and for a moment, the mist wavered, revealing glimpses of the forest's true form, twisted, gnarled, and watching, hungry. She felt if she looked too long, she would be devoured. But she couldn't tear her eyes from Jacob. The sight of him gave her strength. With a fierce cry, Sarah hurled herself toward the glimmering path, instinctually reaching for the swirling light. It enveloped her with a surge of force, tearing against the darkness. The mist shrieked in protest, thickening, clawing at her limbs, trying to drag her back. "Don't you see? You can't escape." The mocking voice echoed, a chaotic symphony of despair. The light pulsed brighter, wrapping around her like a cocoon, comforting and fierce. She could feel warmth spreading through her, momentarily quieting the fear. And then her heart raced again, as she felt the light consider her thoughts, embrace her love. If her heart called for Jacob, what would it mean for them both? The allure of the darkness pulled harder, but with every surge of love she conjured, the shining essence countered it, creating ripples that danced in the fog. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath her, branches splintered with rage. The shadows coiled tighter around, desperate to reclaim what they feared lost. Sarah faltered but pressed on. She could feel Jacob's spirit through every piece of her. "Let me help you," she called. But was it truly him? Would her leap into the light destroy them both or bind them together? As she plunged forward, the mist roared, and a blinding wave of light swallowed her whole. Sarah gasped. A rush of memories flooded her, every hug, every laugh, every secret whispered in the still of night. And just as quickly, the light faltered, sending her crashing back into the void as darkness closed in once more. She heard the haunting laughter of the forest, whispering of looming regrets and shifting choices. Choose, they taunted, or lose it all, and Sarah, lost in the chaos, felt the grip of fate tightening around her, the paths unyielding before her once again. Would she find her way back to love, or had she sealed her doom? With breath support faltering, she prepared to shout once more, determined to defy both love and darkness. But would the light answer her call? The darkness swallowed her whole, wrapping its clammy fingers around Sarah like an icy embrace. The forest pulsed and throbbed, the air electric with anticipation. She felt herself fall, lost in the blackness, memories of laughter and warmth slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. Panic set in, tightening her chest, squeezing breath from her lungs. "Jacob!" She screamed into the void, her voice a fragile echo, swallowed by the silence. Just as despair began to take root, she surged forward, fighting against the unseen pull of the dark. "I won't fail you." The words felt like a lifeline, a thread connecting her to him. She could almost hear his voice calling her back, soft but urgent, like a whisper beneath a sea of dark water. Sarah's eyes blinked open unexpectedly. She lay in a clearing, surrounded by trees that looked like twisted giants, roots crawling like fingers over the ground. The glow of the light flickered nearby, reminding her of the warmth she sought. But was it deceiving? The figure she knew was Jacob floated in her mind, just out of reach. "I need to find him, I need to know," she whispered, fighting against the heaviness in her heart. She rose to her feet, shaking off the encroaching shadows that threatened to pull her back down. Each step felt like a battle, but she pressed on, determination sharpening her focus. She could feel the ground vibrating beneath her, like it was alive, restless in its anguish. Which way, Sarah? She asked herself, glancing at the paths before her. The path to the left seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness, while the one on the right pulsed with that seductive light. "Can you even make a choice?" A voice hissed from the shadows, cruel and taunting. "Shut up," she shouted, whirling around, her fists clenched, heart racing with fury and fear. "You don't own me." "Oh, but I do," it replied, the words oozing like sludge. This forest knows your heart and your secrets. It's only a matter of time before it consumes you." The forest quaked, branches snapping in agreement. "That's not true," she yelled defiantly, forcing herself forward. Light danced just out of reach, pulsing like a heart, beckoning her closer. "Jacob needs you. Don't you want to save him?" His name hung in the air, soft yet heavy. Memories surged back. His laugh, the warmth of his hand in hers, moments of bliss so bright they could shatter despair. With her heart thundering, Sarah reached for the light as if it were a lifeline. It flickered and flickered, teasing her with the warmth and security she craved. But as her fingertips grazed the shimmering surface, a painful jolt shattered her resolve. The light twisted into darkness, slick and slippery, dragging her back. She gasped, her stomach lurching, and suddenly she was reminded of all the times she had hesitated all her life, the choices left unmade, the chances lost. Gritting her teeth, she pulled against the tugging darkness that sought to claim her. "I won't let you," she shouted, standing firm against the storm of confusion and fear. In that moment of defiance, her will forged a new path. She pushed away from the dark, gripping the light in both hands, willing it to become real. But as the brilliance flooded her, a chilling laughter echoed from the shadows, growing louder, reverberating through the trees. "You think your love can conquer this darkness? You'll see." Fear clawed at her throat, but with every ounce of love she felt for Jacob, she pushed back. "I choose him. I choose love." And just as the shadows coiled around her soul, her heart exploded with light, fracturing the haze of darkness. Walls of fog crumbled, revealing a hidden truth beneath. It was as if the forest had been peeled away, and she saw the sinister, twisted heart of its magic pulsing with life. "Thou shalt not go unchallenged." The forest roared, but Sarah stood, fierce and unwavering as the ground quaked under her feet. She felt the power of her choice resonate through the air. But was this the end, or merely the beginning of a new terror? Suddenly, a vision struck her, a flash of Jacob, entangled in something sinister, a creature lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to pounce. "Sarah." His voice broke through the silence, desperate and raw. "Jacob," she cried, but his image faded, leaving only shadows and a haunting reminder that time was slipping away. With a deep breath, she pivoted toward the heart of the forest, heart pounding in rhythm with the pulse of darkness. The struggle was far from over, but with fate bending around her, she pressed on, drawn deeper into the eye of the storm, her own truth hanging in the balance, hanging by a thread. Would love be enough? As the ground shattered beneath her once more, sending her spiraling into the abyss, one thought echoed through her mind. What horror lay at the heart of this forest, waiting to reveal itself? The ground swallowed Sarah whole, wrapping her in a vortex of despair. The darkness danced around her, mocking, etching thoughts of hopelessness deeper into her mind. Every heartbeat echoed like thunder, ricocheting off the cold, impenetrable walls of night. "Jacob!" she screamed again, the name tearing from her lips with the urgency of a drowning woman reaching for air. Then, out of the void, the forest whispered her name. The sound slithered through the air, a ghostly caress, drawing her deeper into its grasp. She felt like a marionette with invisible strings tugging her to a fate she dared not imagine. What awaited her in the shadows? With a surge of determination, Sarah pushed the despair aside. "You won't take me," she grunted, forcing herself back to the last flicker of light lingering on the horizon. It dimmed but remained a sliver of hope piercing through the fabric of darkness. But a piercing scream erupted from the trees, reverberating like a warning bell, tore through the night, chilling her bones. Was that Jacob? Panic surged through her, knotting in her stomach. Had he found himself ensnared in something far worse than she had imagined? She turned toward the sound, each step a reminder of how fragile her resolve was. "Please, I must find you," she whispered, though each word felt heavy as lead. Shadows twisted around her, whipping through the air like malicious winds, a reminder that here, fear was a living entity. Then she spotted it, a shadow flitted through the trees, a figure almost human, yet contorted in unnatural ways. It paused, just at the edge of her vision, and Sarah's breath froze in her throat. It was watching her, waiting. "Jacob?" she called, though her voice trembled. Silence enveloped her like a shroud. Then the dark figure began to move again, slinking away from the light and deeper into the woods. Gathering her courage, she chased after it, heart racing, every instinct screaming at her that this was a mistake. "Wait, I'm coming." The words tumbled from her lips. Desperate, frantic, she darted through the underbrush. The forest came alive with sinister whispers, branches writhing like skeletal hands. "You can't escape the darkness, Sarah," hissed a voice, low and honeyed. "It knows your every fear, your deepest regrets." Her breath quickened. "No, you don't know me," she shouted back, emboldened by the thought of Jacob's face. His smile, his laughter, they kept her grounded. But as darkness slithered around her like smoke, she wavered. Then a flicker. There, the twisted figure had paused again, now silhouetted against the faint light. Its shape shifted, morphing into something grotesque. "Come." Sarah, it beckoned, voice sweet yet laced with malice. "Your journey leads you here. Embrace it." "No," she shouted, anger burning through her dread. "I choose love over despair." The figure screeched, a sound unlike anything she'd ever heard, painful, raw, filled with rage. In that moment she understood. This was not just about Jacob. It was about her, too. This darkness thrived on fear, on self-doubt. She wouldn't let it win. "Jacob!" she yelled one last time, pouring every ounce of love into that singular name. And with each call, the air crackled with energy. "Fight! I'm here!" The shadows recoiled, howling in protest as beams of light exploded from her hands, illuminating the clearing around her. The forest shuddered violently, branches snapping in protest. Then, she saw him, a flash of Jacob's face, pale and terrified, chained to a gnarled tree, eyes pleading. "Sarah, help!" he cried, desperation twisting her heart. But just as she reached for him, the twisted figure lunged, blocking her path, a sinister grin stretching its face. "You think you can snatch him away?" Terror filled her lungs, but she wouldn't back down. "I will save him." As the dark creature lunged, fangs bared, she steeled herself. Would her love be enough to break through the horror? And in that heartbeat, as time slowed and clarity surged, she realized that everything rested in her hands. Would she save Jacob? Or would she too be consumed by the darkness? The shadow lunged. She braced for impact, knowing that the fight for their lives was just beginning. The shadow lunged, and in that moment, Sarah felt time shift. It was as if the world slowed down, each heartbeat becoming a pulsing warning. The dark creature's jagged teeth glinted in the faint light, and her instincts screamed. "Not today," she roared, drawing on every ounce of love for Jacob. With a fierce yell, she surged forward, arms reaching out as blasts of light erupted from her fingers, illuminating the darkness around her. The creature screeched, as shrill as the wind, recoiling from the bright energy that sizzled in the air. But fear clawed at her insides, and she pushed it aside. She had to trust in the bond she felt with Jacob. "Hold on," she cried, aiming for him. But the twisted being was fast, darting in front of her, blocking her path again. Its grin widened, stretching unsettlingly. "Do you really think your love can save him?" it taunted, voice dripping with venomous delight. "Love is weak, something I thrive on. It will burn you, and him. Not if I'm strong enough," Sarah shouted, drawing from the depths of her being. She had faced the darkness before, in the form of doubt and despair. This was no different, and a final act of desperation. She thrust her hands forward, summoning every fragment of light inside her. The air around her shimmered, crackled, and suddenly, a wave of energy surged forth, cascading in brilliant rays. The creature screeched again, the sound grating on her ears, falling back, but it wasn't enough. It lunged again, its speed predatory, but Sarah was ready. She stepped aside, feeling the breeze whip past her as it collided with the gnarled tree that bound Jacob. "Let him go," she demanded, eyes fierce. For a moment, the shadows rippled as the creature reeled back, surprise flickering in its grotesque features. Jacob was struggling against his chains, desperation etched in his pale face. "Sarah, please!" he gasped, voice hoarse and raw. With a swift motion, she darted toward him. The creature was disoriented, but she knew it wouldn't be long before it recovered. She grasped the chains, cool metal biting her palms. "I'm here. I've got you." As she pulled, her heart raced, adrenaline surging through her veins. But the chains wouldn't budge. Each link felt like it was infused with the darkness itself, resisting her every effort. "Fight it, Jacob. Remember us," she shouted, trying to breathe courage into both of them. Tears streamed from his eyes, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah saw a flicker of recognition. The shadows twisted around them, growing thicker, more oppressive. The creature was coming back, launching at her again, eyes blazing with fury. "Do you think I'll let you escape?" it shrieked, sharp claws raking through the air. "No," she screamed, pulling on the energy she felt pooling in her chest, a ball of light growing unbearably warm. She could do this. She had to do this. "Jacob, hold on." With a primal roar, she thrust the light forward, and it burst, radiating outward. The wave washed over the creature, illuminating the forest in blinding brightness. The twisted being shrieked, darting back into the shadows, but its retreat didn't last. The darkness writhed and coiled, morphing into 1,000 living fears that danced around Sarah, taunting her with half-formed memories and whispered doubts. Sarah Jacobs' voice broke her concentration. "We have to escape. It wants us to stay here." The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. This was a trap, the creature feeding off their fears, using the very bond they shared against them. "Together," she shouted, wrapping her fingers around his. "On 3. But the shadows surged forward, and a guttural scream erupted from the creature, furious and unrelenting. "You will not leave me," it roared, shaking the very foundation of the forest itself as the shadows closed in. Sarah took a breath, ready for whatever came next. 1, 2. A piercing silence fell, and in that heartbeat, she felt something shift within her. Could love truly conquer this darkness? 3. They pulled together, hearts pounding, and in that fraction of a second, they leaped toward the distant light that glimmered like a beacon, the shadows howling in their wake. Would it be enough to break free, or were they too far gone already? The truth waited just beyond the horizon, and Sarah had to fight to uncover it. Would she and Jacob escape this nightmare, or were they destined to become lost in the darkness forever? As their bodies twisted through the shimmering light, an intense pull ripped at Sarah and Jacob, dragging them back toward the grasp of the twisted creature. The light seemed to flicker, growing dim in defiance of the darkness that surrounded them. Sarah could feel the cold fingers of fear wrapping around her throat, squeezing tightly, but she wouldn't let it win. "Not now. No, we can't let it take us back," she shouted, her voice slicing through the encroaching shadows. She gripped Jacob's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of his pulse against her. It was grounding. It was everything. The moment they hit the light, a surge of energy blasted through them, pushing against the dark like a tidal wave. The creature shrieked again, an unholy sound that echoed off the trees. Its features twisted in pain, a grotesque mask of rage. "You will regret this." In an explosion of blinding radiance, they were propelled forward, tumbling across the damp forest floor. Shadows flared and writhed, lashed out like vipers, but they clung to each other as tightly as they could. A canopy of gnarled branches loomed overhead, a reminder of the prison they'd just escaped. Panting, her heart racing, Sarah glanced up. The creature had retreated for the moment, but it was still there, lurking just beyond the edges of the light. "We have to keep moving," she urged Jacob, helping him to his feet. He looked disoriented, eyes wide with lingering fear. "Where is the light coming from?" he gasped, scanning the shadows, looking for any sign of the creature. "Let us not focus on that right now. We need to trust it," she replied, determination flooding her veins. She had to believe they were safe, or they might spiral back into despair. They ran, feet pounding on the tangled roots that crisscrossed the forest floor. But the darkness wasn't finished. It whispered dangerously in the air, forming specters that baited them with memories of doubt, shadows of their failures, their fears, the parts of themselves that tried to bury their love. "You can't escape," it hissed. "Shut up," Sarah yelled, decrying the poison it spewed. She squeezed Jacob's hand harder, her own pulse beating in rhythm with his. "We will be free." But the creature's voice rose above their cries, its tone mocking. "You think you can just run away? I will find you again. You cannot flee from what you are, what we are." Jacob echoed, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What does that even mean?" The ground beneath them shifted, and Sarah stumbled, nearly falling. "It means it's playing with us, using our fears." She dragged Jacob back up, pressing on. "We can't let it distract us. Remember who we are together." But deep inside, her chest tightened with uncertainty. She didn't know what would happen next. Was this light leading them toward salvation or deeper into a trap? Suddenly, they burst into a small clearing where the light was brightest. The air crackled with energy, a soft humming that wrapped around them. "Look," she shouted, pointing to a glowing orb hovering just above the ground. "What is that?" Before they could process what lay ahead, a wave of warmth surged through the orb, almost beckoning them to approach. Sarah could sense Jacob's hesitance, and she squeezed his hand, a silent promise to face whatever this force held together. "Do you feel that?" she whispered, leaning closer to the orb's glow. It felt oddly familiar, like a promise of hope wrapped in light. "What if it's a trap?" he asked, eyes darting around the clearing. "Then we'll fight," she resolved. "But we won't let fear choose for us." As they stepped closer together, the air thickened with tension, crackling like a storm preparing to break, and just then, a sinister laughter echoed from the shadows, deep and mocking. "You think you can alter your fate? You're only delaying the inevitable." The orb started pulsating faster, a heartbeat matching theirs, as if it too felt what was at stake. Sarah and Jacob exchanged nervous glances. "Are we ready? Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Jacob breathed, preparing himself. Gathering every ounce of courage, Sarah took a step forward, heart pounding against the walls of uncertainty. The darkness loomed ominously behind them, waiting to pounce as they reached for the orb. A jolt of energy surged through the air, and everything seemed to freeze. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: answers were just within grasp, and they were not about to let the darkness win. What awaited them on the other side of the light? And could they truly break the chains of fear that bound them? The moment their fingers brushed against the glowing orb, a torrent of warmth enveloped them, pulsing like a heartbeat. Sarah felt energy surge through her, melding with Jacob's own essence, and for the first time since they had set foot in this cursed forest, hope ignited within her. "Together," she whispered fiercely, squeezing Jacob's hand. The orb grew radiantly bright, illuminating the shadows around them, pushing back the oppressive darkness that threatened to consume them. An echoing voice rolled through the forest, trembling with rage. "You cannot escape. The shadows will always find you." But with the orb's light shining fiercely, the darkness recoiled, its fingers retreating like a wounded beast. Sarah felt an urgency building within her. They could break free from this nightmare. "We have to go, Jacob. Now." Taking a deep breath, they plunged through the orb, and as they crossed the threshold, the world around them shifted violently. A rush of colors enveloped them, sweeping them away from turmoil and despair, carrying them into an ethereal landscape filled with vibrant light, a place that finally felt alive. They stumbled into an open field, bathed in golden sunshine and an unblemished blue sky that stretched on forever. It was as if they had been reborn, cradled in warmth rather than fear. The air smelled sweet, like blooming flowers and fresh rain. "Is this?" Jacob started, awe painting his features. "Are we free?" "I think yes." Sarah beamed, her heart soaring. They embraced, relief washing over them. It felt like they shed a weight that had cursed them for so long. But as their laughter shared the pure air, the dark whispers lingered at the edges of their minds. Faded echoes still clawed at the corners of their consciousness, promising they were not yet out of danger. "We can't let our guard down," Sarah murmured, pulling back to look at Jacob. "The darkness may still be lurking." He nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. "We'll face it again if we have to, but not today." A flicker of doubt crept back into her heart. Do we let fear control us? Were we meant to be consumed by it? She remembered the chains, the horror wrapped around Jacob, felt the thrum of darkness still alive within her. "Fear only has power if we give it power," Jacob replied, taking her hands. "So let us hold on to what we love, not what terrifies us." Together, for a moment, their surrounding faded away, and their connection deepened, the bond woven stronger. They might always have shadows to battle, but love flourished amidst it, a beacon waiting to guide them when darkness crept too close as they turned to explore the beautiful expanse before them. A dawning realization washed over them. Mill Hollow, their past, and the tales that haunted them would always be tied to who they were. "We have to go back. We owe it to everyone," Sarah said, resolute. Jacob's brow furrowed, uncertainty in his eyes. "But what if the darkness returns? If we return and share our story, we can warn others. Maybe break the cycle for good. It won't be easy, but we can face it together." The shadows might flicker behind them, but here, in this light-filled paradise, they collected strength to confront the truth. They exchanged a knowing glance, one filled with unyielding resolve, and they nodded in agreement. "Let us do it. Let us go home," Jacob said, squeezing her hand tightly. They stepped forward, hand in hand, ready to reclaim their lives. With every step, they felt lighter, each hint of the haunting past fading beneath their feet. As they ventured back toward Mill Hollow, they breathed in the pure air, a fresh page waiting to be written in the distance. Familiar hills beckoned. The town awaited their return, along with new stories to tell, of survival and courage, the legacy they would leave behind. Once ensnared by shadows, Sarah and Jacob had emerged victorious, connected through love and determination. The darkness may shape their memories, but it would never define them. And as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting hues of copper and gold, they felt liberated, a haunted past, transformed into a hopeful future, one they weave together with the people they loved. They are ready to be home. Don't be left out as we journey into new tales of adventure and resolve. You need to subscribe now. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm with that love. Flood the comments with your thoughts on this thrilling conclusion and your theories on what's to come. And don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to hear how love conquers fear. This is the moment to show your support and be part of our incredible community.